My next guest is the granddaughter of Eleanor Garner. She's an actress, she's a playwright, as I said, and she's put pen to paper to give us what would be an emotional journey, a touching journey of her grandmother. It's a fascinating story about a young American girl growing up in Nazi Germany. Ingrid Garner is my next guest. She's online right now. Ingrid, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
That's an absolute pleasure. Before I get started to Eleanor's story, let's talk about you first of all. You're based in LA, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Yep. And you're not just a writer, a playwright, you're an actress in your own right. Tell me about your acting.
I studied acting in university for the first 2 years and then branched off into other things like playwriting. I guess I consider myself more of a storyteller than anything.
Interesting, yeah, the storyteller, and hence this is how this play came about. And it's come through your grandmother's memoirs, is that right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And it's opening next week here in Melbourne, so we're dying to come and see that because it's getting some really good reports at the moment. Now, this has been travelling the world, as I understand. Tell me whereabouts it's played.
I was in Australia last year. I did Perth and Adelaide, and then I did Canada in Winnipeg and Edmonton. And I've toured around locally in California and also in Texas.
Ingrid, what influenced you to become a writer and an actor?
I'm not sure what it was. I think in high school it was the first time I did a play, and doing something that I finally felt like I was good at gave me so much confidence in it. It noticeably improved everything else in my life. My grades in school improved considerably. I was just a happier person. And before that, I was planning on being a sheep farmer. Actually, I was studying agriculture. A
sheep farmer? Wow. Yeah. So you've gone from one end to the other end, haven't you?
Quite, yes.
So what turned you off the sheep farming then?
I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I loved agriculture and animal husbandry, but I guess at the time my grades reflected more of an actor.
Well, I think you're doing pretty well. You're in Melbourne now and about to open at Chapel Off Chapel, and that's starting the 15th next week and going through to the 20th of March. We've got some double passes to give away shortly too, and I'll give people the phone number for that. I'm going to be there next week to see the opening of this, and we've got our passes for our listeners on Saturday the 19th. Tell me about the story now. This has come from your grandmother, and I was just talking a little bit before you to Maria Mercedes, who's doing a Greek show in Melbourne, and we were talking about the migrants coming into Melbourne, into Australia. This is very much a story along similar lines from your grandmother, of course, in Nazi Germany and heading over to America. Tell me something of the story and how it all came about.
My grandmother was an American born of German-born parents, but they were American citizens at the time that her father, in 1939, received a job offer in Berlin, an electrical engineer. And because they were suffering greatly from the Great Depression, they decided to take the boat right over. And in mid-Atlantic, Hitler declared war on Poland, and by the time they got to Germany, they could no longer return to the United States. So they were literally trapped in Berlin for the entirety of the war and for about a year after for the Russian occupation as Americans.
Ingrid, how does this translate to yourself as an actor performing on stage in a one-woman show? It must be extremely emotional going through the story time after time and reliving it in your own mind.
Yes, although I do get more used to the material as I do it more. I'm not a method actor. I don't brood around before and after the show. But I've become accustomed to the material. When I hear other stories, though, from the book that are not in the play, they still affect me greatly.
Well, what encouraged you then to go and write this play? Was it something you wanted to tell the rest of the world about, or joining with others who had had the same experience?
Well, initially, I was just worried, as many of my peers in the acting world are, about how I was going to fit into the theater world, and I didn't know if I had the gumption to go up and audition in LA every day. So when I was first introduced to this concept of the Fringe Festival by Richard Marisser, who's now my producer, I just thought that was fantastic and a wonderful way to self-produce and do something suited to my unique talent. So then I just needed a story to tell, and Richard pointed out that I had this amazing story in my family, and that it would be a spectacular novelty for the actual granddaughter of the person to play her. So that was initially my motivation, but it's really become lovely to see how it affects audiences. A lot of World War II survivors come, a lot of survivors of war, of other wars have come and thanks me for what they feel like is finally the sharing of their stories, civilians in wartime.
I could imagine you take a lot of people then on a journey of their life, as you're saying there, and it would be quite emotional. I think you're playing at the Loft Theatre from memory, and down to Chapel off Chapel, and that's a very intimate space, so therefore you're really connecting with your audience, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Does that play on you at all? I know you said you're not a method actor, but surely that emotion you would see from the audience and feel from the audience, that must translate to you somehow.
Yeah, it's very affecting when people come up to me after the show, and sometimes not even about their personal experiences, but the children of or the grandchildren of people who survived a war, whose parents never talked about that time. They said that they feel closer to those relatives finally knowing what they've been through, because they never knew before, and that does weigh heavily on me. But I guess in a good way. I feel like I'm doing some good with my art, which is nice.
Now, your grandmother, Eleanor, obviously, that's her name. She grew up there as an American child, as you say, caught in Nazi Berlin. When did she then move to America?
When did she? Sorry, what?
When did she move to America?
She was born in America, and after the war, they moved back to America in 1946. They moved back after the war.
Yeah, in 46, was it? Yeah. Yes, an interesting time, isn't it? Lots of migrants that were around the country around 46, 49 and so on, and going to various places. There was the States, Australia, of course, Canada taking a lot of what we would call these days refugees, and I suppose that's very opportune to be talking about that today. We've got 3 double passes, Ingrid, to give away to come and see you on Saturday the 19th of March. Now, if our listeners would like to be one of the first 3 callers in at 5996 6977, 5996 6977, this is a Chapel off Chapel, and they are for Saturday week the 19th of March. You'd have to collect your tickets by 2:30 at the box office. If you'd like to phone the studio right now, we'll take your call and your phone number. We just need a phone number from you, your address and your name. 5996 6977 you'll pick up from the box office. Now, I believe that when you're not on stage performing, you're out there touring and playing. You've got various things. Plan 9 from outer space. You're like playing a zombie, I read. Santa Claus conquers the Martians. What a change from one point to the other.
Yeah, those are annual productions I do at my home theater, and they are our home theater is the mission statement is sort of doing staged cinema or movies as theatrical plays. And they're very popular, and I really enjoy doing them, although I have no lines usually in the plays, even though I'm the starring role.
You got no lines, eh?
Yeah.
Well, you play a vampire on stage, and isn't that Plan 9, I think, from outer space?
Vampira.
Yeah, Vampira.
The original horror movie hostess. Yeah,
okay. So if you've got no lines to do, what do you just come on all dressed up and...
Yeah, she part of her agreement, the original movie, which is now considered the worst movie ever made, directed by Ed Wood. She was so humiliated to be doing that movie, but it was kind of the end of her career, and she didn't really have a choice. But she agreed to do it only if she was not featured or that she had no lines. So as long as she was mute, she agreed to be in it, and he could use her name as a selling point.
Okay.
Along with Bela Lugosi.
If I gave you 3 wishes, what would your 3 wishes be for?
Wait, 3 wishes?
Yeah, 3 wishes for anything you want in the world. What would you like?
Oh my goodness, that's oh God, I would want happiness for all people, and equality for all people, and I'd give my 3rd wish away. I just can't decide right now.
Well, that's lovely. So happiness, equality, and you give that 3rd wish away for a needy person, needy family or something. That's delightful. Ingrid Garner, thank you very, very much for talking to us today. Eleanors Story starts at Chapel off Chapel on the 15th, goes through to the 20th. You're going to have a lovely run down there. It's a beautiful space. Have you seen the theatre?
Not yet. I can't wait, though. I hear it's wonderful.
Oh, it is. It's a beautiful space. You'll absolutely love it. You really, really will. So I look forward to seeing you there at the opening, and you and I'll have perhaps a chat afterwards too.
Thank you. See you soon.
Lovely to talk to you. Ingrid Garner there, my guest.